Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. Today's episode, we're talking about e-commerce and more specifically how to add e-commerce to your business if you haven't already. And I'm sure we're going to toss in some tips on mindset shifts to make your e-com more successful if you do already have it in your business. I have a very special guest, Tina Barr. Welcome to the show and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. I'm so excited.
I'm excited for this conversation. We haven't had a lot of e-com conversations on this podcast. It's an area that scares me to death, to be fully transparent with you. And maybe that's why. So maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but I'm sure some of our audience members feel the exact same way. So tell me from your perspective, why is e-com not scary? Why did you choose that path for your business?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's such a great question. Well, I mean, to me, e-commerce isn't scary because I've always worked in product-based businesses. My background is in advertising and advertising agencies, and we always had a physical product from a CPG company or, products that you could advertise. And so there's something tangible about it, something exciting about making something, designing something, developing it from scratch, and then putting it out there and getting it in somebody's hands. So I think that maybe there's a certain type of person that's just always attracted to that. And so that's been my path. But what do you find scary about e-commerce? Because then I can speak to those fears a little bit because I've never heard that perspective. That one's really new to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing, the idea of it, right, is quite simple. You're just selling your product online. Instead of having a physical store, you have a digital storefront.
Yeah.
Makes complete sense to me. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I've had businesses in the past where I did venture into e-com, and getting traffic to the site was always an issue. And then making sure the web page is set up properly to speak to that ideal buyer, all of these different things. I for sure don't have a marketing background, so that probably plays a big role into it. But I've heard, either whether it's a physical product or you're selling something digital online, getting the right people to your site is one, and then converting those people, those two big hurdles that if you don't figure that out, I mean, your business is doomed.
Yeah, exactly right. So you made a great point. The first step is really like number one, you need proof of concept, right? And I always recommend to get over that hurdle of how much traffic you need. If you're going to test out a new product, test it out on a marketplace, like put it up on Etsy, put it on eBay, like even Amazon, like put it somewhere that has built-in traffic and marketing and brand trust. And then if you get a couple of orders from strangers, you get some reviews, you get some feedback on your product, then you're on your way to start your own website and you'll have an insight into who your ideal customer is. And then you can use the tools available to grow your traffic. So then you need to get good at other things. So you're going to have to decide how your traffic is going to come in. Are you going to do Facebook ads? Are you going to do video through YouTube or TikTok? Are you going to do SEO or Google ads? So there's so many different answers to how you get that traffic. But the first step is always to have proof of concept.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's business 101, although as entrepreneurs, we often skip over that step.
Yeah, I'd say I meet with quite a few people who have some amazing idea that came to them in the shower in the middle of the night. And I'll say, okay, well, where's your proof of concept? Where have you sold this product? And they're like, oh, no, it's amazing. It will sell. I know it will. I'm like, nope, we can't go off of our gut. We need some data to back this up. So, that's an important step that it's something that we want to fast track the experience, and you can't do that. Like that's one of the places that you actually have to spend the most time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And creating a product or a business out of nothing and then selling online, not the exact direction that we want to go with this episode. And I that's not what our episodes are focused on. Tina can help you, I'm quite sure. But for this episode,
Yeah, sure.
I'm mostly curious about for existing established businesses, that is our audience,
Yeah.
who maybe they want to sell something online, they want to go down the e-commerce rabbit hole, if you will. Talk to me about that because proof of concept, you technically already have that because you have an established business, but you don't have proof of concept online. And I'm thinking, two quick examples would be a local retail shop where, let's say, they sell candles. I don't know.
Mhm.
They have great traffic in the store, but then going online, that could be a totally different buyer. The other end of that spectrum is maybe a local plumbing company. I don't know why we always pick on plumbers, but they're great. What is someone like that going to do in the e-commerce world, if anything at all? So can you speak to those kind of two different routes?
Yeah, sure. So like if you have a brick and mortar business that's successful already, I think, we saw a huge shift, for example, during COVID, all of those businesses couldn't be open, couldn't let people into their stores. And so even just having e-commerce on the back burner, maybe it's a very small revenue stream for your company, but it's something that you have set up as a sort of safeguard in case things go bad. What if your place floods, or like you have to close your doors for some reason and move? What are you going to do in that interim time? Being able to fill orders and run your business online is going to be really helpful. Now, the biggest thing is you should have an email list. Like if you have an email list, you have an audience of people that you can sell to, and you can easily send an email. Hey, we're now fulfilling orders online. Place your order here. It could even be come pick it up in store. You don't have to ship if you don't want to. So I think making sure you have that relationship with your customer wherever you got them from in the first place. Even if you have a service-based business, maybe you want to sell them an ebook, maybe you want to sell them some kind of like end of year box of your best work. Maybe you want to have something unusual, a little bit different. Maybe it's not traditional e-commerce, but I think having that option is it's just another revenue stream that can be great for larger size businesses. And then if you have something like a truly service-based business like plumbers, like it could make sense to have, you're always going to have that customer who's a like DIY person. They don't want to pay for you to come in and fix this tiny little drip in your sink, for example. What if you just sold a kit with a video set that let them do it themselves? You don't have to send your best people out on the road. They can have this delivered and they can have a self-serve solution. And you have all of a sudden another revenue stream that doesn't cost you a lot of money, but builds a good relationship with your existing clients.
That's super cool. I'm so glad you said that. I was I'm getting excited over here as you were saying it because I'm like, that's such a brilliant idea that I'm sure no plumbers in the world are doing. And it's tiny, right? I mean, we're not talking about millions and millions of dollars, I don't think, but it's your brand. You're getting your brand out there, brand loyalty. Maybe you fix the sink with a little $40 box and then they call you in to replace a water heater. Well, they wouldn't have done that if they didn't
Yeah,
know about you.
exactly, because you have your branded box in their physical space. It sits under the sink. They open it and they're like, "Oh, there's the phone number of that company I need to call," right? It's a leave behind in a different way. Another good example is a few years ago, I worked with a big company. There was a staffing agency. And so they staff people for like warehouse jobs or temp work, things like that. And they actually created I created an e-commerce store for them that was like rewards for their employees. So when you hit 100 hours of temp work with the company or 200 hours, they sent you a t-shirt or they sent you a hat or they sent you, a gift card, something like that. So it was e-commerce in that we used Shopify, we used all the tools of e-commerce, but it wasn't a revenue maker for them. It was actually a way to build loyalty with their staff, because it was important for them to make sure those people came back and then they became walking billboards for the business, because they'd wear the hat, they'd wear the t-shirt, they'd have the swag out in the world.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second too, because that's actually in a former business that I've now sold. That's the line of e-commerce that I was in. So it was a promotional products business, and we would we would make these stores for different companies for that exact purpose. Whether it was a baseball team and they wanted to buy the merch, or
Mhm.
a company like you're saying, what are some of the different applications of e-com that maybe we're not thinking about just because we think it has to be a Shopify store or an Amazon store? What are some of the examples of things that you've done?
Yeah, sure. So I think that Shopify is just the tech tool that you're
Mhm.
using, right? That's just the software. It can be a link on your existing website that links out. It could be something internal on your, company wiki page. Like here's our company store. Go get things that way. Another good one that I've been working on lately is for a company who did a what's it called? They did one of the, why am I blanking on the name? It's like a fundraiser before you launch your product. And so
Or like
you're
a Kickstarter or something like that?
Kickstarter,
Yeah.
exactly, sorry. I totally blinked on it. So they did a Kickstarter, and so now they need to redeem all their Kickstarter rewards. So they
Mhm.
just have a Shopify store. Some people might not have found the Kickstarter because now it's closed, so they can just go buy that extra merch on that store, and then the people who bought the Kickstarter get a code to go redeem it, and it just makes the whole fulfillment of how do you fulfill thousands of rewards of people who bought a tote bag or a t-shirt or something. How do you make that really seamless? You use the tools of e-commerce. And you can then collect all those email addresses and then use that for your ongoing marketing. And theirs isn't a physical product. Like they're doing it's actually for a video game company. So they're pre-building their audience for this video game. And so they used Kickstarter and they used physical products as some of the rewards.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, even you said uh, step one is validate the product, right? So let's take
Mhm.
that off the table. Then it was have an email list,
Yeah.
or have a way to contact people with this offer.
Mhm.
But I'm also hearing that this is actually a way to generate that email list, which can then propel your brand moving forward. So that's one of the things I see from people a lot of times is they have a great offer, it's been validated, but they just don't have that customer pool, whether it's emails, past clients, whatever that may be. What are some ways we can think about that? If we're adding e-com to our business, how do we also add an email list or new potential customers?
Mhm. Well, I think it's like the email list is, email is a value exchange. So if I'm going to give you my email address, what are you going to give me in return for that? So sometimes we're giving value through, we have a really valuable newsletter. That's something that people want. Maybe you're giving business tips. Maybe you're giving links to your videos or your podcast. So I think there's that side of it. And sometimes you're just giving a discount on services. Sometimes it's like sign up for our email list and you'll get 10% off. So in that case, it just really depends. But just saying, sign up for my thing because I want to grow my list, like coming at it from that selfish perspective, it's never going to work. Right. So I think you have to think about what do we have of value that is just enough to match the value of giving my email list or my email address and being willing to have you show up in my inbox.
What do you put? I've heard different numbers. What do you put at the value of an email these days? I've heard everything from $2 to $20, but times have changed. So do you have a
Yeah, I
theory
mean,
around
I
this?
don't think there's one number. I think what's important is to benchmark it against your own business.
Mm,
So if you look at the size of your list last year and your business was all services, like you could divide it by how many clients you had and then say, okay, that's the value of our email list. If you have an e-commerce business, yeah, you're going to have a bigger scale and so you're probably going to be in like a couple of dollars, but it also depends like if you're selling a high ticket item or a low ticket item. Like I don't think there's one number, but I think the important thing is to have a quality list. People who are opening it, who are reading, who are clicking, who are taking action. Having a list of like useless emails doesn't do anything for anybody.
mm. Yeah, I mean, just a number, having any number of inactive emails is basically like
Yeah.
having zero. Not inactive, but people who aren't checked into what you're doing.
Right. So cleaning your list regularly makes sense too, especially like if your listeners are working with corporate clients, people change jobs, like that email just goes into a black hole because that person's no longer at the company, so having a regular list cleaning is an important practice no matter what kind of business you have.
Yeah. So what phase or phases come after these first two? So we've validated the product or the service. We
Mhm.
have an active and contactable, we'll say, email list, people who are interested in what we're doing potentially. How do we then grow this, whether it's a new revenue stream, a new product, whatever we're tacking onto our existing business in the space of e-com? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think that's about, setting goals for the business. Like, obviously, you want it to grow. So, what's your revenue goal? Is there a revenue goal in some of the cases we talked about? It's not about revenue, but it's if we send a customer survey, are we going to get positive feedback on, oh, it's so cool they have this. This is a differentiator in the space. Nobody else does this. So I think it's about setting what are the business goals and what was the reason that you started this e-commerce venture, and are you consistently meeting those goals and targets?
That makes complete sense. Again, maybe that's business 102. That's you could definitely
I mean,
start there.
sometimes those basics are really
Yeah.
overlooked, so it's important to revisit those fundamentals.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's what makes the biggest businesses the most successful is they have those in place. I'm before I let you go, I'm also curious. I mean, outside of the not validating your offer and just putting up a store that does nothing, are there any common pitfalls you see with people venturing into e-com?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one is spending a ton of money on ads without knowing what you're doing.
Mm,
So that's like the fastest way to go out of business is to go what I'd say is go straight for the sale, right? Like they'll
mm.
log into Facebook Ads Manager and go straight for purchase. It's probably the same with services, but you have to really test your messaging. You have to test your audiences, and you should be doing that with smaller amounts of money. And you should really take a course or meet with an expert before you start throwing thousands of dollars a month or more at ads, because it can really set you back pretty quick.
Yeah, and we've reached business 103. Do not spend more than you make. I
Yeah,
mean,
there you go.
that's a good point though. I mean, yeah, people think that ads, you could just put up an ad and you'll make money. It's like $1 in equals $2 out, but that's a whole different episode of this podcast that we
Right,
won't get into
exactly,
right
and
now.
I'll say one thing I'll say too is, don't take the results that whatever your ad platform gives you at face value, right? Because they're
Mm,
very good at taking attribution for sales that maybe came from your existing clientele or came from an email you sent that morning, and so, that dollar in, dollar out is something you also have to, like, put careful eyes on. Is that really the true story?
yeah, that's a great tip actually. Very, very cool, especially if you're adding e-com to an existing business. That means by default you have revenue from something. So
Yeah.
don't think anything new is just from this new thing. You have to analyze your metrics. I like that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Tina, this was
Mhm.
this was a great episode. I love this because I believe it is untapped potential. I mean, look what we did for the plumbers, all the plumbers listening to this episode. You just got a gem of how to make more revenue in your
Yeah,
business.
there you go. I mean, you probably have a warehouse full of supplies and put them in a box, make a little YouTube video on how to fix your XYZ by yourself and sell those all day long. You don't have to constantly be on the road. It's just another easy revenue stream.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate you coming here. Where can the listeners find out more about you and help with their e-com adventures?
Yeah, sure. So anybody who's interested in chatting about e-commerce, I'm at tinabar.com. And if you want to book an intro call with me, if you want to talk through your e-commerce idea, I'm happy to have an intro chat. And you can find me at tinabar.com/podcast for that link.
Awesome. That link is on the screen, tinabar.com/podcast. We'll put all the links, all the social media to find Tina down below in the show notes, wherever you're watching or listening. Tina, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandon. It was fun.
Make sure you subscribe. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmonious at Lunch podcast. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and we want to invite you to join us in the Small Business Success Facebook group, our private group where guests and listeners come together to grow your business. We want impact-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to go to the next level in this group so we can all share ideas, collaborate, and grow our businesses together. Go to whatif.com/group, and we want to invite you to join today. See you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.